So their children are being exploited, they're being used, they're being sometimes sold from their families because of how poor they may be. And the government doesn't really get involved with those types of things.
So what's our role in that? What's the International Center for Missing and Exploited Children's role? What can we do about this? What are we doing about this?
Well, we are looking at the laws that they do have, and we are holding countries accountable. We're showing them that you are lacking in this area, or you may be doing well in another area. Here's a country that's not doing as well, but they like to model after you. So we're largely holding countries accountable.
What are you most proud about when you think about having this internship under your belt and the experience you've had here? What are you most proud of, and how's this going to shape you as you move into your career?
Some countries don't really focus a lot on children. They focus more on other sectors like agriculture, industry, or telecommunications in the broader sense, but they don't look and see how are people communicating with each other. I actually researched a country where they're just now allowing individuals to have their own internet on personal cell phones. So when you have countries that are that far behind, their legislation about protecting children with regards to online grooming is behind as well.
And what does that ultimately mean for the kids of those countries?
It means that they are not protected by legislation, by the law. Really, they go unnoticed. The acts are happening, but nobody's really doing anything about it because there isn't laws to protect them. I'm most proud of actually finding legislation that shows that countries are moving forward, they're moving into the modern world. So what we do a lot is looking for checks and X's, seeing if a country has legislation. And since I'm the second edition, we get to see if a country has actually taken kind of our feedback and they've actually done something about the problem to address the issue.
As a psychology student, I was just really surprised by the fact that child exploitation and human trafficking just are kind of below our collective consciousness as a society, especially in the age of social media. It really seems like every aspect under the sun gets covered, but for some reason, child exploitation and human trafficking doesn't. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to join ICMIC as an intern. My name is Billy Baker. I'm currently a master's student at the George Washington University studying forensic psychology. I first heard of ICMIC from my friend Miriam Woodruff, who was an intern here last semester, and she really just told me great things about the organization. Yeah, I'm currently in charge of the Child Sexual Abuse Model Legislation Review. So what we do is analyze dozens of different countries and all the continents around the globe, and we look at the legislation and compare different aspects that are related to child sexual exploitation. We look at age of consent, age of marriage, just certain laws that protect children against sexual abuse. And I've mostly been focusing on Latin America and Central America. And it just seems really important to have this established legislation in terms of preventing child sexual abuse. Just like Darlene said earlier, one of the fellows here at ICMIC, it's really important to not only deal with the repercussions of exploitation and trafficking, but to prevent it. And one of the main ways to prevent this behavior from going on is strict legislation that actually imposes strict penalties for the behavior so that it won't be encouraged. Well, it's very interesting. I feel like it's a problem that is huge and it's all over the world. How when you look from a step back, you really see the effect and change it can have. One of the most important things with combating child sexual abuse and trafficking is to have governments accountable, which is why great nonprofits like ICMIC and NCMEC, the State Department, they all do great work in making sure other countries and our country is accountable for child sexual abuse and protecting them. I think it's really hard to find advice to give to such a great organization, but I guess just more outreach and advocacy to just the general public. I feel like when I'm in day-to-day conversations with my friends, family, I read the news, I really don't see these type of issues brought up. So I think if there's some way we could collaborate with maybe media organizations or just do more events where we can do more outreach to show how much of an issue that this is, and that it really should be looked at more on a global level?
So my name is Sarah Devon Trifari. I go by my middle name, Devon, typically. I'm from Tiffin University. I'm a senior. I'll be graduating next week. My major is forensic psychology and my minor is in intelligence studies. I have a big passion for children in the criminal justice system, special victims of all kinds, and research. And when I found this internship, I knew this was a place I wanted to be at and needed to be at. So honestly, child protection I always knew was an issue, but until I came here, I didn't realize the depth of this issue globally. I'm on the Global Children Research Initiative, and there are no countries that I have found that have a definition of a missing child, which is resonated a lot with me because there are so many missing issues that come from simply being missing: trafficking, child abduction, kidnapping, any type of exploitation. I mainly worked in the Caribbean region for missing children. I was shocked, and being that, you know, we're in America, we're in a fairly sheltered country, and as far as this issue, some of these Caribbean countries don't have the same perspective as far as respecting vulnerable populations. I had a case, I read an entire report on Guyana in particular. They surveyed children from, I believe it was 9 to 18. One of the children in this report was quoted saying, "If a woman is wearing revealing clothing, she wants to be raped." And that was something that shocked me when I was looking into this report. Because not only, you know, it's the Caribbean, they're by the equator, so they're typically wearing less clothes than you would see Russia in winter. But the fact that this was a 9 to 11-year-old child saying this was something that was terrible and terrifying. So really looking at other cultures and seeing how these issues aren't considered issues, but reviewing these countries and comparing them to our model missing framework, just for example, really shows on paper the comparison between where some countries are and could be, and other countries are and should be, to where they could be. And I think that continuing this research-based advocacy is really going to make this world a better place. It's going to make children feel safer. It's going to make them cognizant of things that should not be happening to them that maybe are, and influence them to find ways to get help for those issues. I think this organization can do so much good in this world. I think dream bigger. We do so much now, research-wise, as far as advocating, training, educating, and educating is so important, especially on this particular topic. I think we can do more.
So my name is Emily Mariano. I go to school at the George Washington University. I'm an undergraduate student there, and I'm currently a legal research intern at ICMEC. So what I primarily do is I work with another individual on our team, and we have been looking at Caribbean countries, and we've started on South America countries, and we've been looking at the laws about missing children and abductions and abandonments, and we're also looking at the investigative techniques that these countries use. So we find all this information and then we include them in reports, and our aim is to ultimately change some problems that these countries have with their laws and with their investigation techniques.
So we came into this situation, and by the way, you know, we've got this room dedicated to Jacob Wetterling. I mean, these are real kids, and that are dealing with very real issues, ones that are almost too dark to talk about.
Our work is important, and we actually want to change the laws, so it makes it a lot more real and makes us more motivated to work. So although it's sometimes upsetting to learn about the laws and the investigation techniques that are used in these countries, we ultimately know that we can improve them, which is what we're trying to do. If I could change a certain thing, I would just hopefully change all the issues that happen towards children. No child deserves to be sexually trafficked or sexually abused or kidnapped or hurt by their family members. So if it were up to me, they wouldn't have to go through any of that pain. They would all be happy, which is what we're aiming for. All I would say is continue doing good work and continue fighting for children who don't necessarily have the voice to speak up.